Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Dunya Mithat, and I am a junior consultant at Turner & Townsend. We are joined today by Adam Armour-Florence, senior consultant from Turner & Townsend. This is a retrofit information support and expertise, or RISE event, which is fully funded by the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, delivered by Turner & Townsend. Thank you all again for joining. I will now hand over to Adam to start today's presentation.
Thanks, Dunya. So as Dunya highlighted, I'm a senior consultant for Turner & Townsend. So my background before this has actually been quite a few years in the public sector, working for albeit Scottish local authorities and public sector organisations. But I think your challenges and things to do with anything to do with retrofit, whether that be in-housing or even your, estates, I've got that experience and awareness of the challenges of doing that. So just to kind of give you a bit of context of where I came from professionally. Now, anyway, before we start, it'd be a polite reminder to complete your mobilisation confidence assessment. So that's an early meeting between your warm homes, between yourselves and the RISE Delivery Support Manager, or DSM, to understand mobilisation readiness and to direct appropriate resources and support where needed. So it isn't another meeting, just to remind you. It will help you identify potential barriers to successful delivery of your project, to build a strategic risk profile and maximise your project success, and then also to generate a tailored one-to-one RISE mobilisation action plan. So unless you haven't already done so, it'd be worth booking your MCA today. And I will go on to the next slide and give you basically a brief overview of what we're going to be covering today. Now, first of all, we'll give you a brief introduction of what retrofit projects are. I'm sure many of you are well aware of what that is, but it's a necessary thing, what we say, to provide good context of what that is. Next, we'll be talking about understanding the problem. Next, we'll be spotting early warning signs with the contractor that you're working with, taking a look at constructive contractor management, then looking at escalation and resolution with your contractor, then the when and why to revise your project plan alongside that engagement, and anything that you need to tweak and update and improve alongside your engagement with your contractor. And then just to do a very quick case study on effective project management. But basically it's one slide to show a brief overview of what that looks like on a large scale retrofit project. And then finally, we'll give you a kind of look at the potential RISE resources that we have for continued learning, or to look at any other upcoming sessions that we have that might be useful to you as well in your journey, whether that be for retrofit, whether that be managing your contractor, and everything in between with regards to the local grant. Now, first one, as I said, retrofit projects, brief introduction. Explaining your retrofit in the most simple language, right? And I know here we've given that in 2 bullets there, one of them being retrofit projects involve adding new features or technology to existing buildings or to improve their performance and functionality or safety. And also the second bullet says retrofitting brings older buildings up to current standards, ensuring that they meet the modern safety, environmental and performance requirements. So I suppose in the most simple language, retrofit is to upgrade, not to upcycle, and it's a structure to improve its performance in its primary function. Retrofitting a home, I suppose, does not just have to be decarbonizing. There are many things, that can be enhanced while retrofitting a property, and naturally retrofitting overlaps significantly with renovating as well. Retrofitting a single property will still benefit from having a project plan to help ensure that the whole endeavor happens, and ensuring that you're being efficient and effective, so it doesn't take forever, or that it costs a lot, or that there's costs being exceeded beyond what you're actually setting for your retrofit, be that your single property or for a range of retrofit properties. And retrofitting on scales, we're talking about, it needs a sensible approach, driving things forward, and keeping the whole team focused and on track at the same time. Also, retrofit can be unique, and it's not one size fits all. So as we've mentioned, it could be a historic property, it could be a property with a range of different challenges. It could require things repaired. It could be, you could be trying to do that retrofit alongside, I don't know, kitchen installs or anything else, that other parts of your organization that is being done to that property as well. And basically, There's also a many ranges of archetypes that you can take into consideration. So as I said, it could be the age of the property, it could be the building type, it could be the materials used to build. And then also it's taken into consideration different residents. So the people that you're engaging with, their different challenges, their different needs as well. For example, you could have an elderly couple that rely on, keeping thermally comforted at the same time. So are you wrapping your building around and getting as much insulation in that building as possible to ensure that, not only that you're minimizing costs for them, with heating, but you're also just keeping them warm and keeping their health and well-being in check as well. And also, there is a range of different costs associated with the different types of materials, the technologies, the type of labor and contractors that you need to actually do your retrofit as well. Now, retrofit measures require different design solutions as well. So it can mean that you need different contractors who specialize in different things. And then you basically need to ensure that you're kind of planning effectively within your procurement and in the mobilization of doing that as well. And then efficient delivery. So if you plan for retrofit, making sure that you can foresee the challenges through risk assessments as well and allow for a more effective delivery and to avoid any issues as they come up as best as you can, because we all know that issues do arise, challenges are faced. There may be that you have already kind of been involved in SHDF and or HUG as well. They have been not without their challenges as well, so I'm sure you're well aware of those as well. I suppose it's probably worth mentioning that planning starts with having the right data. So making sure that the data that you have on the properties, such as EPCs and everything, that is accurate, and that you can use that accurate data to determine what efficiency measures are needed, basically, based on that particular home or suite of homes to achieve the set targets that you are setting to decarbonise, or in this case, to align with the requirements of local grant funding. And the last thing anyone wants is the wrong measures being installed. You don't want to be impacting your residents. You don't want to be increasing costs to them unnecessarily. And you do not want to do things such as, put in a measure incorrectly or, use the wrong measures, and then that will cause things such as damp and mold or further damage to that property as well, especially in this case, when you're considering the likes of traditional buildings or older buildings, which needs to take a more sympathetic approach to the way that building is. I suppose, what do you need to plan for retrofit? So what do we need? So all properties are unique, as I said, and there's no one size fits all solution. Different properties will be suitable or unsuitable depending on those certain retrofit measures. So as I said, certain properties may have a cavity. So what measures can be done to install that cavity insulation? Because, we wouldn't recommend obviously putting external wall insulation on a cavity wall insulation building. And also, as I said, solid wall traditional properties as well. What can be done? Do you need to do internal insulation? Can you consider insulation, for example, that would minimize the potential for damp and mold growth and or is breathable? So looking at things such as, I don't know, hemp or more sustainable materials as well. So that's just, potential examples as well. And then it's important to assess and plan for this complexity to avoid delays in delivery phase of your program. And I suppose it's probably worth mentioning efficient delivery will only be achieved, if you plan your retrofit, apply considered assessments of risk, prevention measures adopted, and also assessment of opportunities that may be actionable. For example, if that risk is realised before considering how to mitigate the impact of the risk becoming, an issue and not a new opportunity. So local grants, ambition and role. So the local grant is a vital component of the Warm Homes programme, and it enables local councils to lead and deliver place-based climate action. Councils are not only delivery partners, but also play a strategic role in shaping and driving local climate solutions. So through the Warm Homes Local Grant, you should be aiming to tackle fuel poverty. That's the biggie, by improving the energy efficiency of homes for vulnerable residents. So as I said, ones that, the elderly, it could be people with health issues or mental health issues or everything in between. You should be reducing local carbon emissions in line with your climate emergency declarations. So as a local authority, I'm sure you'll have carbon reduction targets that you want to be set, whether that be aligning with net zero, whether that be, having your own approach doing that as well. But you'd like to think that your decarbonisation trajectories go hand in hand with reducing energy consumption in social housing, but in housing, and also, making it cheaper for residents so that you're tackling fuel poverty at the same time. And also, a nice thing to have would be obviously stimulating green jobs and skills in their communities. So, we want to be making sure that we're developing the supply chain, improving the supply chain, so it's allowing for the likes of green jobs to be improved, to allow for, that trickle approach to training associated with that, upskilling contractors at the same time. So there's a lot of good things that, can happen out of this projects here in an ideal world, is ensuring that if you're kind of taking these approaches that, you're not only decarbonising, you're not only reducing bills, you're not only reducing energy consumption, but you're also improving the lives of the people, improving the buildings, but also improving the skills within, whether that be in your local area or just beyond that as well. Now, understanding the problem. So what problems can you have with the project? So first is finding properties in the first place. As I said, going back to the right data, having the as accurate data as possible and being able to kind of like pinpoint what those properties are, whether that be, a spatial sort of kind of zone-based approach, or it could be that you have properties that arrange over a certain amount of areas, but we all know that there is complexities associated with that. So finding eligible properties in your area and finding eligible residents in those properties as well. So, can those residents be eligible? Will those residents even engage in the first place? How will you engage with them and everything like that? Also, access to properties. So it's communicating with the resident and or landlord associated with those properties, and residents being available for surveys and work. So, part of the delivery of this will be, you go out and do surveys, retrofit surveys, or those properties. So making sure that that's planned in and the residents are available, and that you're minimizing, not only just the disturbance of them, but making sure that, that they're around in the first place. Because there has been instances, where residents will say, I'm available, and that's agreed and put in, and the contractor goes out, or the retrofit or assessor goes out, and they're not there. Next is information on properties. Insufficient knowledge on those homes is not a good thing to have. You need to ensure that the knowledge that you have is a good thing, is enough and is accurate. Next is understanding of retrofit properties as well. So you need to have a better understanding of retrofit opportunities, understanding of what needs to be done, understanding of what contractors could do to be able to retrofit those properties as well. And then, whether this is a hot potato or not, but this seems to be quite a usual thing, is resident engagement. That seems to be a kind of very, common problem across, whether that be, retrofit projects for social housing, past and present. And so it's important to know that residents' understanding of retrofit options is clear, is in layman's terms, and that they're brought along for the journey as well. And also building up that trust. You might have energy officers or engagement officers in the local authority itself. So is there trust there already? Or if not, how do you build that trust, with those residents to ensure that, they're not going to kick back and say, even though you're trying to communicate to them of all the benefits of doing that retrofit and all the benefits of reducing their bills and reducing energy consumption, having that trust there is a very key thing to ensure, it minimizes the amount of property dropouts of your scheme. Other problems is disrepair on homes. So there could be, when you're doing your retrofit assessments or even the work that the contractors are doing, hidden issues of those properties when you're doing those works. Could mean that there's an extra time and cost incurred for that, because you could plan as much as you can, but then when you go out and do these properties and you say, I don't know, structural issues, or that there is, current issues of damp and mold, it's like, how do you build that in to ensure that you're minimizing, the time creep and the cost impacts and, the impacts on the residents itself. And then, so it's ensuring that, that there could be problems with residents or the landlord able to afford the extra work incurred with that. And then lack of funding for extra work in general. And then key KPIs, so key performance indicators. So that's, the problems could be, developing the targets, knowing what targets you need to do, how you will align with them, and how you'll report on them at the same time, and keeping to those targets as well. So you may have monthly KPIs that you're setting as part of the scheme. For example, you've said in this month we'll do 300 properties, next month we'll do 325, 350, and thereafter. So how are you planning your KPIs alongside the delivery of your project? Are they realistic? Are you, do you, it's not trust your contractor, but is your contractor giving figures of delivery that is, believable and or can be trusted? Because you don't want them to be promising to over deliver, and then a few months down the line you realize that they're under delivering, and then you're missing those KPIs that are being set. And then, as we all know, budget management, you want to avoid overspending from scope changes. So how are you building that in to ensure that you do not spend more because of certain issues that arise, or time creep, or issues with whether that be contractor making mistakes or anything in between. And then, so is poor cost tracking and forecasting. So how are you ensuring that you're making sure that you're tracking the costs, that you're recording what's going on, that contractors are feeding back, right, we have done this air source, we've done this solar PV or whatever on the property, that is in line with what they proposed, that does not cost more, and is also making sure that you're keeping on top of that to ensure that the costs don't start creeping and getting larger and larger over the time of the project. Then problems with your contractor. So roles and responsibilities, the contractor versus the local authority. So in this case, unclear task ownership causes delays. So when you're kind of sitting down with your contractor, it's being clear with them of who owns what task, who needs to do what, and to ensure that those tasks and delivery of those tasks are being fed back to you in a timely way, in a clear way, and in a format that can be used, so then you can be reporting back to the department when you're delivering your project. And then also duplication or missed actions, so being clear in the roles and responsibilities between yourself and the contractor to ensure that there's no time wastage and or money potential wastage to do with duplication of work that's going on, or things falling through the cracks as well. So ensuring that as I said, being clear of those roles and responsibilities of the contractor and yourself. Secondly is communication methods. So what is your agreed communication protocol? If you don't have one, how are you going to ensure that you're keeping constant and regular communication with your contractors? Do you have check-in meetings? Do you have site visits? Do you have sort of shared space for files that they can use to send back to you? Or are you relying simply on email and or phone calls? So things like that is to ensure communication methods are clean and are easy and simple, so that as to avoid misreporting or lack of reporting, or anything being missed by yourselves if you're needing to report back on delivery as well. And then delayed updates or miscommunication. So within these meetings, you could be setting an operations meeting, and you could also set something like a regular weekly update as well. So you want to ensure that to avoid that, you don't want to ensure delayed updates or miscommunication with your contractor as a result of that. And then access, so this could go back to your engagement with resident and ensuring that they're aware of the dates when the contractor will need access to the property to do assessments and the works. So that's a big one, is being unable to gain timely entry, and therefore impacting the delivery of works, doing it in a timely way. And then poor coordination with residents as well. So, when those contractors going out to those properties, how are they engaging with the residents? Are you aware that, there's that they're doing that in the way that you'd hoped, and that the resident is comfortable and can trust the contractor as well, so that they're doing that works. And then contractor performance. So regular problems could be missed deadlines and poor quality of works as expected, so what are in place to ensure that those quality of works are being assessed regularly, and that they're be done reliably, and that you can also trust that you're getting, if the contract goes and does the works, that you're able to trust what they've said that they've done, and then you're able to go and assess what they've done as well. And then reactive rather than the proactive approach is also a problem. So yeah, how much are you planning in advance, and how well are you planning to advance to avoid the fact of, like, if problems occur, that you're having to react to them? So how do you better plan with the contractor to ensure that you're avoiding those problems in the first place? Scope creep, another one. So that's additional tasks added informally. So if there's things that you've agreed with the contractor and then additional tasks are added, well, why have those been added, and could they impact delivery? And then budget and timeline is stretched as a result of scope creep as well. So if you're keeping within the scope as best you can and being very clear with that, between yourselves and the contractor, you'll ideally be avoiding the budget creeping and getting higher, and then also the timeline being stretched at the same time. And another problem is geographical spread. So like many of you, I'm sure, will have property spread across wide areas. And are those contractors able to deliver on that wide area in the first place? Do they have, enough resource to do that? Do they have materials access that they're able to kind of get the materials out to a wider area as quickly as possible? And then also taking in travel time as well. So like, if obviously the contractor is traveling longer, it'll incur additional costs and will cause reduced productivity and increase the potential for deadlines to be extended as well. So how do you spot early warning signs with the contractor in the first place? So the performance metrics to monitor is a key one. So what metrics matter? So that's the early detection of issues relies on quantifiable indicators. And that includes regular monitoring, helps prevent surprises, and supports evidence-based decision making. So the key metrics to track, so there's schedule adherence. So for example, are milestones being met on time? That's a key one. It could be budget variance, so are costs tracking against forecasts? And if they are not, why, and what can be done to ensure that they're keeping in line or closer in line with the forecasts that you've been set? A quality assurance, so are installations passing inspections and meeting the past 2035 standards? That's a key element of this funding. So making sure that that are doing to a good quality and that you align with past 2035 standard is important. And then also resident satisfaction as well. So are complaints increasing? Or if they're not, and if you're getting good feedback from residents as well, it's gathering that feedback as well. And then I suppose setting thresholds for automatic alerts. So for example, is increased 10% budget overrun triggers a review or something like that. So in those metrics, what are you setting that will then incur something like a review or a discussion with the contractor or a check-in, So it's having those in place so that you're being proactive rather than reactive to these sort of things as well. Next, behavior red flags. So that includes warning signs in the contractor could be missed meetings or updates. So those meetings, as I said, that you've scheduled, whether they be site meetings, regular ops meetings, or updates meetings, are they missing them? Why are they missing them? And why are they not updating you if they're not able to attend these meetings in the first place? So that's a red flag to consider. Next one is defensive communication. So from the get-go, ideally, it should be a collaborative approach with your contractor, right? So obviously you're relying on their expertise to do the works and stuff. So there's element there of trust where you're relying them to do that, but also at the same time having that open communication with them that's collaborative. So if there's a defensive approach, why? And is that hiding something else is going on in the background? So always worth noting that. And then lack of transparency. So for example, you relied them to do one day to do 2 homes, to do certain measures on those homes. And then when it comes to asking how it went, what was done, what technologies you used, that they're either not being transparent in what they're providing you, or that they're being defensive or delaying what they're providing you. So these things that you should be really considering as a red flag. And why does it matter? So behavioral cues often precede formal performance failures. And then also early intervention can prevent escalation as well. So as I said, is like if you're identifying these problems earlier on, and if you ideally have a good relationship with the contractor, that you're avoiding those happening down the line, and it prevents something like escalation back to whether that be the department or your internal management. Next, documentation gaps. So what to watch for. So that's incomplete site records. That could be delayed reporting, as I said, as well, and inconsistent documentation. So looking at those, you could consider the solution of using, as I said before, shared document repositories. So using a SharePoint, using somewhere that they can readily provide the documentation you need, updates on works that have been done, invoices and things, so that you're not having to chase them directly all the time, wasting your time, but also wasting their time at the same time. And then also it requires version control and sign-offs for all these key documents. So when you're having those documents on the shared folder or wherever you decide to put them, what is the sign-offs of those? What's the quality assurance those as well? And how do you ensure that they're reliable enough so you can provide that as evidence and data for, delivering on the funding scheme that you're on? And just looking at the below point, under past 2035, documentation is a compliance requirement. So you need the documentation. Next, resident feedback. So what are the key early warning sensors of that? So residents often notice issues before project teams do. So this could be a missed appointments, poor workmanship, or lack of communication. So having that good relationship with residents and an open communication with them is great, because you might not hear from the contractor until the end of the day or a few days after they've done the works. So having that resident, being able to communicate those issues as they happen is important. And then action steps could be investigating patterns in feedback. So what is the general feedback that's been given? Is there kind of like themes or things that keep occurring? For example, contractor caused a lot of fuss, damaged this, or something like that. So it's recognizing those patterns so you can note them down. And also use feedback to inform contractor reviews and training. So, in those engagement sessions or meetings with your contractors, is that, okay, using that feedback to inform discussions with them in a constructive, and balanced way, of course, trying to avoid, confrontation in that aspect. Next is defining milestones. So progress tracking. Milestones provide clear indicators of progress and help identify if the project is on track. Very important. Motivation. So achieving milestones boosts team morale and motivation. Yeah, so it's also really nice to see, right, okay, this is what we said we do for this month, or this, cumulatively up until this month, and we've managed to achieve those things as promised. So it's always nice to know that a project's going well and that there's not problems and or complications that are causing the project to be, delivering less than hoped or impacting cost and things like that. Then stakeholder communication. So milestones offers a way to communicate progress to stakeholders without overwhelming them with details. And then risk management as well. So the early identification of potential delays or issues through milestone tracking. So constructive contractor engagement. So project management tools to consider. So project schedules. So regardless of whether you have a linear or agile approach, right? A Gantt chart is as powerful, right, as the time as you invest in setting it up. So if it's done well, it can help significantly reduce risk, reduce resourcing impact for stakeholder management, and it can aid in reducing the need for change proposals and can ensure a firm grasp for the delivery of works as well. Now, purpose of project schedules is to visualize the project schedule and also showing tasks, durations, and dependencies as well. And then the benefits of project schedules is it basically helps in ensuring progress and ensuring that the project milestones and timelines are met, and awareness of the looming milestones, and such as other things like key activities and decision points as well. Next is the work breakdown structure. So that's understanding the work breakdown structure essentially will mean significantly enhance the ability to manage contracts, or the ability to understand how your turnkey provider is managing the contract status of their contractors. Now, its purpose is it breaks down the project into smaller, manageable components, and the benefits, it makes it easier to assign tasks and manage overall project scope, or as a tool for managing the contract. Next is Kanban boards. So these are So these are basically, so as I understand it, candidate on boards are good in a business case or a funding application stage of retrofit projects. And then when finding the best fit measures or the locations to target, and then during the planning of what contractors can work out on the elements of things such as, where and when without impacting the delivery of work or other contractors. And, for example, another example could be disturbing the resident as well. Now, basically, in a nutshell, the purpose of that is to visualize workflow and manage tasks through different stages as well. Now, important to have a risk and opportunities register as well. So this is a requirement for applying for retrofit funding in the first place from the department, but a key living document with the project plan is the key thing. When done well, and reviewed fortnightly and or monthly, depending on the schedule, it can make difference between, success or project creep or failure of delivering on KPIs or milestones that you're setting. And using this is important, ensuring that your contracts will help have the time to risk manage your projects as well, and basically prevent it from creeping into, I'm not going to say disaster, but from creeping into issues that could have been better avoided, or creeping into non-delivery or under-delivery of the project that you're delivering. Now, the purpose of this is basically to track potential risks and their mitigation strategies, as well as any additional opportunities, if those risks or if they're not listed. And then the benefits is improves risk management preparedness as well. Now, resource and cost breakdown structures, they categorize and allocate resources needed for the project. And the CBS breaks down the project costs into detailed components as well. And the benefits of that is it basically ensures efficient resource management and allocation alongside budgeting and cost control as well. Next, setting the right tone and why it matters. So why it matters is a confrontational approach can damage relationships and stall progress. So as I was saying before, having that sort of collaborative approach and an open approach and friendly approach is ideally the best way about it, in theory, right? Humans, we're all different. We have different personalities. So it's kind of understanding how that person works, what their personality is like, so that, when you're engaging with them, that, it's avoiding the potential, for any fallouts or any damage to relationships that may impact progress on delivery. And this also matters because a collaborative tone fosters mutual respect and problem solving as well. So yeah, again, trying to be collaborative, trying to be open with them, try to be very clear from the get-go of what you need as per the contract to ensure that you're reporting back delivery effectively and in a detailed way, but also that is worked in to the contractor's work themselves. So they might say, oh, that information we can't provide you until a couple of days later. So could there be a compromise? Could you come to a compromise, or could that be worked into your delivery when you're reporting back and when you're monitoring progress as well? Strategies include acknowledging constraints, so recognizing external pressures contractors may face, such as supply chain issues. So, are they getting the materials quickly enough? Are they getting the materials that they need in the first place? And also, do they have enough, workers to do the work that needs to be done as well? And then focusing on outcomes as well, keeping discussions goal orientated. So that could include quality timelines and resident satisfaction. Now, obviously, meetings are important to maintain that relationship. So having that informal sort of kind of period where you can ask how people are doing, and then you catch up on things going on, but also keeping that clear agenda in those meetings so that you're, having the so you can achieve the goals that you need, but also that the contractors are achieving the goals that they need as well, or having an opportunity for them to ask information or highlight any teething problems or any issues they're facing as well, and vice versa. Now, formal versus informal channels of engagement. So that's informal engagement includes useful for early stage concerns and encourages open dialogue without triggering defensive as well. So as I was saying, having those periods where you can informally catch up and chat, or whether that be meetings or on-site visits, is actually important for that relationship building and to keep that openness. And then formal engagement, of course, is necessary when issues persist or escalate, and it includes written warnings, contract reviews, and performance improvement plans as well. And it's important that you use the contractor communication log to track all interactions that are happening as well. So basically, as you're to avoid he sheds, she sheds situations as well. Now, contractor leverage is understanding your contract. So the most retrofit contracts include clauses for performance standards, also includes penalties for delays, incentives for early or high quality delivery, and termination rights as well. And then how to use leverage constructively. So that's reminding contractors of agreed KPIs and timelines. So it's having those regular points, check-ins with them to ensure, right, this is what we agreed, this is the timeline we set. In order for us to achieve that KPI for this month, or wherever you're setting, is reminding the contractors that they're that you're, as a local authority, have to adhere to that as part of the delivery of the funding, but that they need to adhere to that to ensure that that they are delivering on time and that it's not causing an impact on delivery to the project. And also offering support such as training resources before invoking penalties. So for example, don't go right into them and say, right, you made a mistake, incur a penalty. It could be, right, could we offer training in this? Is there something that we can do to prevent that from happening again? And then also using incentives to encourage turnaround, so milestone bonuses, etc. And then building long-term relationships. So as we all know, retrofit is a long-term thing. It could go over years. So basically, if your council gets that contractor, you'll likely be working with them, or a contractor with some contractors across multiple schemes, or over a long period on a single scheme. So tactics that you could use for relationship building could be lessons learned sessions after each phase. So once you've delivered in a certain quarter or a phase, say, right, what were the issues that came up? What were the positives? What were the negatives? And what are the lessons learned that we could learn from that? So it's not a case of, again, you did this wrong. It's a case of, right, here's things that we learned, and this is how we could avoid it in the first going forward. Could include joint training on PAS 2035 and resident engagement. So if you've got those resident engagement officers, or energy efficiency officers, or anyone, is maybe having them involved in those sessions and providing training on how to kind of understand the challenges of the residents, their communications preferences, and ensuring that that it's minimizing disruption on residents. And then recognition programs for high performing contractors. You could have something where you could celebrate the good work they've done as well. And bringing that together, it's going back to that collaborative approach and ensuring that the contractor is more like a partner and makes them feel that they're doing the good thing and delivering alongside you as well. So escalation and resolution. So escalation pathways could include, when you should be escalating is repeated or missed milestones from that contractor. Could include safety or compliance breaches as well, and resident harm or reputational risk as well. So for example, is the work they're doing causing harm to resident, causing discomfort? And these are kind of serious things that need to be considered, if that's repeatedly happening. Now, the various escalation pathways you could take is, of course, internal escalation. So it's through the project manager, to a senior officer, and then to your legal and procurement team. It could be contractor escalation. So the site manager themselves could report to the regional director, and then to company leadership. And then external escalation as well. So will it need mediation? Will it need arbitration or legal action? Obviously, that's quite significant things that you want to avoid, but it's just worth noting that these are examples of forms of escalation pathways. Dispute resolution mechanisms. So mediation is basically informal facilitated negotiation and is often quickest and cheapest when it comes to delivering such large scale and complex projects as yourselves. Adjudication, so that's a neutral third party makes a binding decision, and it's common apparently in construction contracts as well. Arbitration, so that's a formal process similar to court, but it's private. And then final litigation as well. So that's the last resort due to cost and time. You do not want that to be impacting your project, halting the project. You don't want to be incurring a unnecessary amount of costs to the local authority as a result of having to go to litigation. Best practice includes a dispute resolution clause in all retrofit contracts, and it's important to keep detailed records to support your case if escalation is needed. So as I said, having, you know, if you have those meetings with them, that they're recorded. If you're going out to do the site visits, that that the officer, the site officer, is feeding that back so that you have that recorded as well. Now, learning from escalations. Basically, escalations reveal systematic issues such as poor specs, weak oversight, or unclear roles of the contractors. So post-escalation review, what went wrong? What could have been done earlier? And what changes are needed for contracts and processes or training? The tools associated with that could be root cause analysis, could be lessons learned workshops, it could be updates to risk registers and delivery frameworks. So there's a bunch there that could be done. But obviously, you want to be avoiding the more formal thing, and you want to be looking at showing, right, is there ways that could be, that the contractor could learn from potential mistakes made, and that workshops could help with that as well. So it's being that more positive approach rather than just, highlighting the issues and then, punishing them for that as well. When and why to revise your project plan. So why is the project plan revision is necessary? So a project plan is an integral in ensuring the project's overall success, and revising a project plan is crucial for several reasons. So that includes addressing unforeseen issues. It could be optimizing resource allocation. It could improving accuracy. It's for managing risks, ensuring stakeholder alignment, and enhancing flexibility as well. And then triggers for revision. So project plans are dynamic documents and need to be revised under certain circumstances to ensure the project stays on track. So they're like an evolving, living thing. So ensuring that they're kind of being able to revise them and make sure that they're updated is very important, especially as if you're learning from doing and getting indications of what's happening, common things that keep occurring as well. So there's elements there that you need to use to ensure that you're revising your project plan as you're going along. And common scenarios that could cause plan revision include the likes of scope requirement changes. So obviously, as you're delivering and as you realize things you're either over delivering or you're under delivering, could you be amending the scope of that plan? It could be funding changes as well. So, changes to cost of materials, increased cost of materials, or increased amount of works being done to properties when you realize there's more that needs to be done. So it's amending funding alongside that as well. Includes realization of risks. Yep. So you'll have risks at the start of the project plan, but as you're delivering, you'll come to understand that there's more or different type of risks or hidden risks that you never knew would even come up in the first place. So it's being able to update the plan to ensure that that's included. And then supply chain cost variations, as I said, things change, from the original, so if the contractor comes in and says the work will cost this, and then down the line, air source heat pumps cost more, or the amount of works, that needs to be done, it costs more, or anything like that. So that needs to be taken into consideration as well. Schedule delays, of course, like what was forecasted, what was agreed, what is delayed. So making sure that you're adapting the report to reflect that. Resource availability, and then finally stakeholder feedback as well. So everyone that's involved, including residents, if you want to ensure that what's the feedback, what could be used to then continuously improve your project plan to ensure that you're doing it doing it to the quality that you're happy with, but that ensuring that you're being able to deliver the project effectively even more further down the line. And then finally, there's a quick one here, and it's just given a case study of effective project management. Now, this relates to the Sydney Opera House, and that apparently faced significant challenges, including budget overruns and engineering issues. And by adopting a structured project management, engaging stakeholders, and managing risk effectively, the project team navigated those obstacles. And effective resource allocation and proactive strategies ensure progress. Despite delays, the Opera House was completed and became an iconic architectural marvel. And the success highlights the importance of good project management and practices. So if you want to take that case study and then maybe apply to, like, a suite of homes or a range of homes that you have across the estate, it's important to have a good project plan. It's important to try and plan for risks in anything that comes out. It's important to minimize impacts on residents, important to set targets. But most importantly is to ensure that the contractor is delivering as promised, that they're not over-promising, that you have a good relationship with them, that you have a good way of communicating with them, that you have regular check-ins with them, and then you have a process for escalation and or a process as well to ensure that that you're trying to address any issues that arise or any feedback from stakeholders that comes from delivering the project. And that's me finished. Tanya? Will I just go into the resources pages here, just to kind of signpost you to relevant Rise On Demand resources as well. Again, these will have links on them when they're shared with you. So there is guides to planning and retrofit, there is project mobilization planning, and then there's retrofit project assessment and future build reflections, and also technical preparation for warm homes and building energy experts as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Adam.